What is good, everybody? We are back for the second edition of Mock Draft Monday in the 2025 offseason with me, your new host for this segment on the Cardinal Rule, Kyler Burd. I'm joined today with my very good friend from Twitter. I will again never refer to it as X. This is Drew McHorter. You guys might know him as Desert Sport on Twitter. How you doing?
I am doing great. I feel really excited to be here. I want to say thank you for having me. I think as you know, and as probably a lot of people in the comment section know, I've been a longtime fan. I first came to TCR back when Zayvon Collins was drafted because
Oh
I
my
was sitting,
gosh.
yeah, just to date myself a little bit and just to share that story. I was sitting there watching that draft with a Dallas fan who was very happy about Micah Parsons, and I was very unhappy. So I was crashing out. I came home. I jumped on YouTube to try and crash out with some other people, and I found Joe who talked me off a ledge. And I said, "Wow, what is this reasonableness?" And I was hooked ever since. So.
I think that is a similar story to how a lot of us got hooked on our good pal. One might even say our papa, Joe Camo. He entered the Cardinal space as one of the sensible voices that was not just a fan's voice yelling at a camera about fan emotions. Uh, his academic background as the professor has really, I think, brought a lot of us down to earth, so we can look at this in reality instead of just through the lens of a fan. Let's take a look at some of the people we've already got in here. One of the first, Aaron Van Buren, one of my oldest and dearest friends in this space. If you guys didn't know, we briefly had a podcast together a few years ago. It was pretty sick. I miss that thing, and I miss Aaron. He is saying all hail the magic chart, which I don't have a copy of that, but if you have watched Joe for any significant amount of time, you know about the chart. He, with his background in statistics, has taken a look at the drafting patterns of the organizations that Monty Ossenfort has been with in the past to see where different positions are most likely to be taken and things like that. So Joe does love to remind us about the chart whenever people start talking about taking running backs late or taking wide receivers early, taking guards early. If I can get a copy of the chart, I'll make sure to pull that up.
I do have to say I do miss. I'm looking at some of the comments, and I do miss Joe as well. And I will play the role of the stepdad who's stepping in, saying, "Hey, I'm not trying to replace Joe. I can't ever replace Joe. I'm not Joe. But
No.
please just give me a chance. I'll do my best."
See, I think on the last stream I was given the role that I cherish as the chill uncle, and I am going to run with that. Hey, how you doing, Jay? Glad to have you here. Red Sea, where's Dad? I know. We miss him. We miss him. He had a conference this week because, believe it or not, beyond this, he is a busy man. So he has entrusted this to me, and I have invited my friend Drew on here so you guys can talk about your mock drafts. Dana, it's always good to have Dana in here because she knows way more about football than I will ever know, and has some really solid mock drafts always. So always glad to have her in the comments. He will come back. I promise. It's not a milk run. I do promise that. Jake, I kind of want to take offense to this, but I won't. For this one time and this one time only, Jake, I will let that slide. Chris,
Don't worry.
happy to
I will
have
give
you
you a
too.
hard time. Sorry, I was going to say, Jake, I'll give you a hard time in our direct message on Twitter. Don't worry.
Oh, well, he will. He will. We all miss Papa. We all miss Papa. We all hail the mighty chart. Caleb, glad to have you in here too. Things are going good, Caleb. Glad to have you in here. AZ Jace, are you awake right now? I know that this is probably quite late for you, so glad to have you in here for sure. Oh no. I am very sorry that you have been sick, Paul. I did not know that you've been to games with Joe, but I know he's been to some in around Georgia and Atlanta and in Carolina. So I'm glad that you guys have linked up. And Dana, yeah, I realized we didn't have a mock from you tonight, but you will be in here informing all of us about what prospects we should and should not like. I feel fully confident in that. All right. So I realized that last week we did about a 2-hour stream, and a lot of that is my fault because we took about the first 45-50 minutes just talking about the free agency news, which we got out of the way, and frankly, nothing has really happened since then. We had another stream on Wednesday night just about free agency, and we ended up breaking the news about Dalvin Tomlinson on that stream, so that was fun. But beyond that, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only free agency moves that we've really made past that are Jacoby Brissett as the new backup quarterback, and we've signed wide receiver Simi Fehoko from LA. And of course, the guard Jake Curhan that everyone has been trying to figure out who that is for the past few days. He played some significant snaps for Chicago last year. He's not a complete nobody, but he has depth. Other than that, I don't think there have been any other moves. We haven't re-signed anyone else that I can think of, unfortunately. I will plug here and I'll plug at the end of this. I just had a video go up on my own channel, Bird's Eye View, about 3 more free agents that I hope the Cardinals will take a look at. And to spoil some of that for you, still watch it. Please go watch it. Number 2 is Will Hernandez. With missing out on like Will Fries, who apparently we were in the running for, we were making bids on him. We didn't get him. We've re-signed Evan Brown to left guard, but what do you think? Are they really going to move along with Isaiah Adams as the starting right guard next year, or do you think Will Hernandez could come back?
Basically, from what I've heard, and again, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not somebody who's going to sit here and try and pretend that I have sources. I don't. I just listen to people who generally do and try and put out what they can. From reading kind of the tea leaves, it sounds like Will's still a little banged up. He still may not be fully healthy, so we may be a little concerned about that. And then it seemed like the latest update was he was visiting Detroit, and he had a post out about that with a Detroit hat being all cryptic about that. So it's not looking good. I would personally, obviously, love to have him back. I think we've mentioned that before, but doesn't seem like we're on that path to bring him back. I think there may be other options in Isaiah Adams, and when we get into the mock drafts, we may end up talking about some of those options.
We
But
will.
as for right now, it does seem like they're marching forward with Adams as the penciled in starter.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'd forgotten about that post of Will in Detroit, and he fits Detroit personality perfectly. I thought he fit the Arizona Gannon personality perfectly too. So I will be sad to see him leave if that is what ends up happening. Duke, nice to have you here again. Red Sea, yeah, it's 9:40 there on the East Coast. Well, and you're still stuck at work. Oh my gosh, I am deeply sorry about that. But something about these streams is Joe is on the East Coast timeline. When these things do run 2.5 hours, dude is up until like 11:30 midnight sometimes doing streams, so that it fits the time zone in Arizona well. So something to think about. I'm about 2 hours ahead. I'm here in Texas, but Drew, you're in Arizona, right?
I am. I just have to get up at 4 a.m., but it's totally fine.
Yeah. Mono, good to have you back. We've got one of your drafts in here today. And Paul, yes, I'm almost as excited about the Dalvin Tomlinson signing as I am Josh Sweat. It's really nice to bring in Josh Sweat because we haven't had like a real number one edge since Chandler Jones. Really, we've just been running out rotations ever since then and just manufacturing a pass rush. We have not had a real number one guy at that spot since then. But we also haven't had a true nose tackle in a long time. In a long time. And I do think the Rawlis Gannon defense wants that desperately. If you're going to run that 3-4 and have like an actual real prototypical nose tackle at that spot that does a nose tackle's job and just plugs the entire middle, stops the run, Dalvin Tomlinson is perfect fit. I love it. I like it quite a lot. And I did see this earlier too. Thank you for bringing that up, Jake. Victor Dimukeji did have a tweet earlier that did make it very much seem like he is leaving Arizona. I don't know if he has a current offer somewhere else or the team just let him know that they wouldn't be bringing him back, but does not seem like he is going to be returning. And he went all the way through his rookie contract, right? We drafted him in 2021, I think.
Sounds right. Yeah, I think so. He was
And
definitely one of the first Cliffs on that one of the first Cliff years for sure.
as a depth guy, he really hasn't been that bad. He's had some flashes of being pretty decent. He's never going to be a true starter. So I do think overall the roster building strategy that we've got going on of just raising the floor of talent on this team, you're going to have some good guys like Victor Dimukeji and Dennis Gardeck. They're going to leave as you start to replace them with more true NFL caliber talent. I know that hurts a lot of people's feelings because Dennis Gardeck is a fan favorite and I love him too, but you don't want to be relying on that. You just don't. And Jake, what else do you have to say? Yeah, Will Hernandez, Kaiser, both starters from last year. I really wish we would have brought Kaiser White back just for the reason that he's dependable. He's not a world beater or really elite by any stretch, but you know exactly what you're getting out of him. So it just would have been nice to know exactly what you have in the middle of the defense.
I do have some thoughts on that. And I think if you look at some of the guys that we've signed, they have a little bit different athletic profile than Kaiser White. More, they've got more athleticism. They're better in coverage. And I think that seems to be something that Monty is really valuing is that coverage ability. I know
For
the
sure.
admin team also put something up about Owen Papo, and I don't know if that was necessarily just because of his great 40 time at the combine and it being combine season, or if they really do see him stepping up and playing more of a role in that rotation. But all three of those guys are much better in coverage than Kaiser was, so that seems to be a focus of theirs.
That is true. And I think not bringing him back and seeing the caliber of players that they've gone after, they're clearly holding auditions for that spot opposite Mac Wilson because he's pretty much solidified himself into that lineup. They're holding auditions between free agents, and I really won't be surprised if we take a linebacker fairly high in this draft. Just as if you find a guy in the second round like a Carson Swessinger that's there for you that you think that can legitimately be a green dot for the next 8 years, then we kind of have the room to do that this year. I have not ordered my Marvin Harrison Jr. jersey yet. I was not nearly as pumped about that news as a lot of people seem to be, but I'm glad that he got that settled for sure. I heard somewhere that the estimate was he's probably given up about $500,000 of revenue from jersey sales his rookie year just because he had this litigation stuff going on.
My question is, those how much did Fanatics lose?
Yes, I know. They probably have been hurting enough where it finally just made sense to settle. I was surprised the whole time that they were willing to just really fight that one out. It's
Well, I
crazy.
mean, that's kind of par for the course for them. But I do want to point out because a lot of the media people have also been saying, and a lot of the headlines are Marvin Harrison Jr. settles his lawsuit. They sued him. So who
Yeah,
settled it?
exactly. So they came to the table and they settled something and got rid of it. And, Paul, Isaiah Adams did have his moments of playing pretty well. And he is a really effective run blocker. It is just his moments of pass blocking are scary. They were last year. And a lot can change in the offseason between your rookie year and your second year. So there's definitely a chance he's heavily improved. I have heard all of the stuff that he is very much one of those in the facility every single day, working his ass off every single day type of guys. So I like him and I wish him all the success in the world. Would I be more comfortable if he was a depth piece with like a real bona fide starter where you know exactly what you're getting out of him? Yes, I would. But It probably won't be the end of the world if they do run with him. If they don't re-sign Hernandez, we very likely could see a day 2 guard pick. Well, I think we're going to see that a few times in Mock Draft Monday today. You might even see one maybe earlier than that. We'll see.
And Joe is not here to bash us with the chart for that.
Yeah.
So.
Guys, I know we miss our father. The chart's gone tonight. We're going wild, and my mock is pretty bad. So we're gonna go crazy.
When Dad's away, the kids will play.
Yeah. What did happen to John Gaines? Is he still on the team?
Yeah, I think he's the backup center right now.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
I remember a lot of hype for him right after the draft. A lot of people really, really love John Gaines. Well, it is late for me, Caleb. I'm a tired boy. Red Sea. Of course, I love Josh Sweat signing too. And I get where you're coming from that he's not an elite one. Like, Josh Sweat isn't in that category of what Chandler Jones used to be or what Max Crosby is right now. I get that. Like, he's not in that tier 1 of edge rushers, but he's such a clear upgrade over anything we had. And to be fair to Rollis and Gannon, they manufactured pass rush with not NFL caliber talent on a lot of that edge rotation last year. Julian Okwara got Baron Browning for half the season. Zaven Collins, who should never have been moved outside, does not have any pass rush move to save his life. Like, they still made something happen. The sacks came from like 17 different players or something last year. So even if a portion of those just go to one guy who's actually a real threat, that's a big difference from last year.
I think the leading sack getter was what Stills last year with like 6.
I thought it was Zaven with 5.
It was one of those two, and it's like 5 or 6. Yeah,
It's one of them.
Real low number.
Yeah, it was not good. It was not good at all. So this is a point that we talked about in that stream last week. I said I was going to get to the mocks quicker than this, and I swear I'm going to. All of these free agent contracts lately are being front loaded with guaranteed money, especially with older players, because Josh Sweat isn't old by any stretch, but I think the contract that he got, if it plays out the full 4 years, he'll be 32 or something. So a lot of this guaranteed money from the $76 million deal is loaded up front. You can get out of this thing in the 3rd or 4th year if you absolutely have to.
Kyler, I think we're in trouble. There's a comment down there you might want to look for.
Oh no.
I think Papa came to check in on us.
Oh no. So Papa, I I want to take back everything I said, because this is still your channel. However, my mock in particular today will be ignoring the almighty charts. And I think Drew's will too. But I'm so glad to have you in here. Please give us all the comments you have.
I will make a case for my 2nd round pick, and I think I could make Joe come around to it if he sticks around. So we'll see. That's my group.
I am excited for that. I think we're just about to head into the mocks. You know, Drew, I think let's start with the submitted mocks and let's end with yours and mine. How about that?
I like that.
All right. Let me go ahead and skip over those and let's get into those. I do think now is a good time. I made a promise to y'all, and I intend on keeping it. Yes. Joe did get me. I'm really sorry. But things are going to get a little wild tonight.
I'm never getting invited back again.
Let's
delegated to moderator.
All right, let me make this bigger. We can get started. All right, let's go ahead and start with the Discord submitted mocks that we have. And we had one from you last week, I believe, Gazer Nick, and I still apologize if I'm saying that wrong or if you have a different way of pronouncing it. But let's go ahead and see what you've got. So I think we've got a theme that we'll see through a lot of these. The feeling in the air to me, and I agree with a lot of people, you're going to see it in my own, is a first round trade back just feels so Monty Ossenfort with some of the key things already taken care of, like Dalvin Tomlinson, a true nose tackle, and a true edge, and Josh Sweat. Like, you are not necessarily being forced into the at 16, I'm going to take James Pierce Jr. because he's there and he's the best edge that's there, or I have to take Kenneth Grant because he's the best defensive lineman that's there. You can get a little funky with it, and picking up some extra picks in a draft where we have half of what we had last year. We had 12 picks last year. Monty could afford to get a little crazy with it and take a tight end and a guard and a running back and just play around when he had 12 picks. With 6, you don't really have that flexibility. And the draft is for as much work as you put into it and look at players and everything. At the end of the day, the draft is a crapshoot, and you are going to be lucky to hit on some of the players that you draft. So having more picks is statistically always going to be to your benefit. So a trade back makes total sense to me. And it looks like you do make an unrealistic trade back. I will say that. I do not think we'll ever be trading back with our division rivals, the Seahawks. But okay, trade back one spot. And then we trade that back one more time to the Buffalo Bills. And we end up with the 30th pick in the first round. What do you think about James Pierce being there at 30? I've seen him dropping down some big boards lately.
It honestly would not surprise me at all. I mean, part of the problem this year in general with some of the mocks is knowing how these teams are going to rank some of these similarly stacked players. Like Daniel Jeremiah mentioned it the other day, and all the experts are saying it. The experts are struggling with their mocks. They don't know how the teams stack these guys. Pierce, if he legitimately had some sort of character concerns, which from what I've heard, again, take this with a grain or less, but it is more so just that he's kind of a hothead.
Yeah,
He's got a really short temper and gets angry really quickly, which I can work with that. He's never been kicked off a team. He's never had any real instances that of fighting or being a bad teammate that we've heard about. So, but it could make him fall because that could be just one of those little marginal things that makes him drop. And if he's there and you're in that position, that's one of like a dozen different ways we could go that I'd be happy with.
sure.
And you like it.
I totally agree with that. If that is the character concern, is like you get a little bit heated sometimes. I don't necessarily think that's a super big deal. But yeah, if it's in a class where you've got a lot of talent at that position and it's just a marginal thing that puts a few guys above you, then you can find yourself falling 10 spots. If you're going through a list of teams that don't need that position, like, you can find yourself falling pretty quickly. So down to 30 for James Pierce a few weeks ago would have seemed crazy because he was very consistently going in the top 12, 15, 16. So seeing him drop is something interesting that I have noticed. And yes, there was a disturbance in the force, and I summoned Joe. But the good news is that he is here with us now, and that's all that matters. So, in fact, I really did the right thing by getting rid of the chart. And Peo time, it is good to have the enemy in the house for a little bit, because when we are here together on Mock Draft Monday, we are not the enemy. He is a Rams content creator here on YouTube that everyone should subscribe to, because you need to know what the bad guys are up to. You need to see what's going on over there.
You really do have some sort of power, Kyler, because you were just mentioning Teo in our private conversation just before the chat too. So
I
everyone that
know.
you mentioned,
I've summoned some big YouTubers tonight. I do have some type of power.
it's a good Monday night.
It is. It is. So this is a point that too many defensive tackles are rated high. You keep hearing in the news from pundits all the time that this is one of the best defensive line classes in a decade. Do you think like that's a little bit overblown at this point? Like, I do think overall this draft class is kind of lower caliber. So are we just locking in onto one position? It's like, hey, this one is pretty good, so let's just run with it because we need something to talk about on the 24/7 sports shows, and let's just say like it's an amazing defensive line class.
Personally, no. Like honestly, no. I am blown away with some of these guys. Just some of the first step ability that is up and down this board is insane for that position. I've never seen a class like this at interior defensive line or running back. Those two positions are stacked in this class. Run,
Running back is crazy this year.
yeah, no, I mean I'm talking like 30 plus names at each that I could see developing into at worst solid NFL starters up and down the board. I am very, very impressed with the interior defensive line class. The rest of it, meh. It's
Yeah,
got some solid starters, maybe not some of the high end talent, but defensive line, you're going to be finding some starters in the second and third round for sure, like high end starters.
for sure. And Peo, I am glad that our organization was able to do something like that for the Rams during the LA fires. I am glad that we could do that for you guys. So what I would say, kind of along that line, is I don't agree with defensive tackles and defensive linemen. I do agree with edge. I think there's a really steep fall off from the top few edge and then the rest of the class. I agree with that. I don't think edge is nearly as deep as some people are making it out to be. But let's get back to your mock gazer, Nick, real quick. Well, we've got a defensive lineman with that second pick at number 47, Alfred Collins. He's a guy I've taken quite a bit because he's pretty consistently there at 47. He represents the beginning of that tier 2 for me of defensive linemen. Once you get past Kenneth Grant and Derek Harmon, and you might even throw Darius Alexander up into that tier 1, like guys that will be first rounders, Alfred Collins is really where it starts as that like clear cut tier 2 guys for me.
I agree with that for sure.
And Jake Worley asking who's the top edge in this class. I think that's up for debate. The top edge.
I don't know. Carter's pretty special, man.
We're talking about Abdul Carter. Well, yeah, okay. I was taking him out of the equation completely. Of course. In a very bad quarterback class, he very much has a argument to be the number 1 overall pick. He won't be because that's just very rarely how things work anymore. But yes, Abdul Carter is in a different world. See, I was thinking along this same line because Carter is just a different tier of guys. For a long time, James Pierce kind of was considered that second guy, but one player that I have seen flying up some draft boards is Donovan Ezeriaku out of Boston College. He started out on big boards in like the late second round. Dude's very consistently in the first round now.
I would feel more comfortable taking him probably than a lot of guys that I've seen. If that's the way we're going, is edge early.
Yeah.
He's been crazy. But another one that I'll put in the mix that any other year you would never hear this from me because I have very consistently been a production over traits guy, especially when it comes to edge, because historically speaking,
Don't say it.
that it works. I'm gonna say it.
Don't say it.
Shamar Stewart has got something, and the way Texas A&M used him was wrong. It was wrong. Let that guy loose.
I don't even know what to say to that. He I don't know. He is a freak athlete, but I am so afraid now of taking freak athletes for their freak athleticism because it's almost never worked out for us. I I know, I know, I know. But Shamar Stewart is a special athlete, and the right coaching staff can probably get him to be a god. Um, and we have the best coaching staff we've had in a long time. So maybe Arizona is the place at the right time for a player like that to just take the freak and turn him into what you want him to be. But his crazy lack of production at a major program scares me so bad.
I get it. I totally get it. And I know I was that way when I first started watching him. I did not want to like him because the stats just said let's not like this guy. We're not gonna like this guy. The tape, man, it's special. And like I said, they just didn't use him right at Texas A&M. They didn't have him just rushing the passer. He was a spy. He was more of an edged defender, like a David Collins type, but they didn't just let that guy loose, man, and get after the passer consistently. And I just really think if they use him properly, and you know, there are the trends are getting broken. Two names that I can think of recently that I did not necessarily like that have ended up developing are Nolan Smith and Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker's never going to be Hutchinson, but
Yeah,
he's a very solid player.
that is true. But I would like you, Drew, to quickly read this comment from Robert Moore. Can you read it out loud for the class?
That's fair. That is totally fair. You know who else was a freak athlete? I'm going to assume you mean Isaiah Simmons and not Josh Simmons. But yes, I cannot argue against that in any way, shape, or form.
Now,
But I also
also
didn't like
to be
Simmons.
fair, though, Isaiah Simmons had production in college.
He did.
He looked like the next Derwin James. He really did. That one I don't even blame Steve Keim on. Like, Isaiah Simmons made sense when he was picked. It just didn't work out. And this is a good point from Joe. Marcus Golden, never a freak athlete, but keeps chugging along, has that junkyard dog mentality. Miss Marcus Golden. He is one of my favorite Cardinals just because of the attitude that he brings and the consistency that he brings. But he also benefited from being paired alongside Chandler Jones. So you had the crazy elite talent guy and the super solid guy on the other side. And that was such a good pairing. If we could get back to anything approaching that, we would be so set in that defense. Oh, it would be beautiful. But let's get back to Gazer Nick's mock because I'm talking way too much again, guys. We're gonna do this though. We're gonna get through it. Round 2 with that second round pick that you picked up. Carson Swessinger is a guy I like a lot. I really do think that is a guy that you can turn into your Mike linebacker and give him a green dot, and he can be on your team for 8 years. Now, we also maybe could have done that with Zaven Collins, but that is an argument for another day that we should never have moved him to outside linebacker, and maybe he would still be perfectly fine inside, but whatever. I like Carson Swessinger. My main argument over him or for him over maybe someone like a Chris Ball Jr., who I'm sure we're going to see somewhere in here. Chris Paul's just tiny for a linebacker, for a Mike linebacker. That is literally the only knock on his game. He's an amazing athlete other than that. Swessinger himself isn't even really that big, but he is a guy with that IQ that can run a defense. I like Carson a lot.
I'll just throw this out here real quick, Kyler, because I didn't actually mention this, but there are definitely a few prospects throughout some of these early drafts, especially. I wasn't able to get to all of them, but I ran through some of the few ones that I definitely want to mention. So when we get to those, I'll throw a hand up or something. But other than that, I'll kind of, unless you've got some specific questions, if I don't know much about a player, I'll just say I don't know much about them yet because I will admit I'm a little bit behind this year on some of my prospects. I'm getting caught back up finally. I'm a lot better than I was a couple weekends ago, but there are some of these guys that I just don't know as much about. Especially there's one of them. So
Yeah, totally reasonable. It's better to admit when you don't know something than try to make stuff up about a player for sure. Round 3, we've got Ozzie Trapillo, a guy that we see a bit because he's generally available around there. From what I understand, he is more of an actual right tackle, and the guy that you have right under him, Jonah Savianea from Arizona, he is a guy that is a good candidate to move inside to guard. So in essence, you're taking a right tackle and a right guard right there. If I'm being correct. And then Isaiah Bond in the 4th round. I don't hate it. I can only say I don't think he'll be there in the 4th round. I do, however, think a wide receiver in this draft is more of a need than we've kind of given it credit. It's same with linebacker. We've been so laser focused on edge and defensive linemen that I think a lot of us have kind of forgotten that wide receiver is a legitimate need. That room is not completely set, and linebacker, someone to be a true Mike linebacker is also definitely a need. And Dana, I always like when Dana backs up stuff I say because then I actually believe it. He's a really great technician, and he is. He is not the super twitchy athlete of a Chris Paul Jr., but he gets it done. Like he's the solid guy that you want in that position. In that way, he is Kaiser White-ish, but younger and much, much more athletic than Kaiser White. Much, much more. All right, let's go ahead and jump to the next one. We've got Lance's mock in here. So following the pattern, looks like we have a trade here. Let's see, what are we getting? We are giving up our, right now, second round pick, number 47. And whoa. Whichever mock draft simulator you use let you really take advantage of LA. So to move back 8 picks, you got a third, a fifth, and a 6th round pick. I think that would actually be investigated by the league if that happened. But hey, for this instance, whatever, we'll take that. Okay. Starting with,
makes sense. They don't like their picks.
they hate their picks. So starting at 16, so we keep 16. Crazy trade, but we keep 16. Kind of like it. You're getting freaky with it. And instead of the traditional line of edge or defensive lineman, you go cornerback Will Johnson, who, if he is there and you do some other things in free agency, we don't know what the team is going to look like by the time the draft comes around. Dude, Will Johnson is so good. So good.
The way I've heard it is they do like the young guys in the room, and that's why they've been looking for more of a veteran. But I think if you get to April and you don't find that guy and Will's there, I'm not worried about the long speed. I don't care. I've seen some pick sixes where that dude just housed the entire defense.
Do not care.
So I don't care. I thought Kamari last year looked slow, and he was one of the best cornerbacks last year. So I'm done caring about that. Will Johnson is amazing. So I wouldn't hate it at all.
Dude, Will Johnson is a 6'2" cornerback. So he's got more length than really anything that we're running out as a starter right now. I think Elijah Jones is fairly tall, but he didn't see the field last year. 6'2", 202 pounds. Dude is about 22. And yeah, I'm not worried about that long speed either. He has all of the makings of being a lockdown corner in the league. And the value that comes from having that guy on the outside in the modern NFL, when you also have to have guys in the slot, which thank God we've got Garrett Williams, an elite slot cornerback. That's awesome. But having a guy on an island, and it's hard to overstate how important that could be. And Will Johnson looks like a lockdown corner in this league to me. He's a national champion. He has all of the production you could possibly want. Like he's a pretty complete prospect to me.
I completely agree.
The PFF comp for him too is Darius Slay, which if you give me a 22-year-old Darius Slay, not the old man that we currently have in the NFL, sign me up. That's awesome.
There are fans that want the Darius Slay now.
Yeah, I know. And he is dealing with a foot injury. I get that. And this is a point to me that like measurables are important, obviously, but the tape is way more important. And what Will Johnson has put out there, dude's a player, and he is going to be successful in this league. I'm fully convinced on that. And we've got Alfred Collins again. We won't go over him too much. Jalen Knoll is someone we talked a bit about last week as a wide receiver fairly early in the 3rd round. And he is kind of like a slot specialist kind of guy. So he is someone that I've mocked several times too. He was great at Iowa State, super productive there, and is a guy with that slot experience. And I think we can upgrade over Dortch in the slot. Love the guy, love him, but I do think we could open up the middle of the field for Kyler Murray a lot more if we upgrade at slot instead of just running out the same guy.
I 100% agree with that one as well. Yeah, and that's all I'll say on that for now.
Yeah, and this is also probably likely. Noel probably is going higher. I do agree with that. Um,
Can I just highlight one of the guys on here because I see one name that I really love on here, and I think I got him on mine as well, and that's Jeffrey Bossa.
okay, see, I don't know much about Jeffrey Bossa, so I'm interested to hear what you would have to say about him.
All right, so here's my quick little rundown on Jeffrey Bossa. He's 6'1", 232, ran a 4.6 340 with a 1.59 split. He had a 38.5-inch vertical with a 118-inch broad jump, 7.34 centimeter three cone, 21 centimeter, or sorry, 21 reps on the bench. He's from Salt Lake City High School, Kern. In high school, he was a dual threat athlete with 138 tackles and 1,000 receiving yards. He converted from a safety to linebacker when he went to Oregon. His junior year was his coming out party. He was second team All Pac 12 with 72 tackles and a game sealing pick six against Texas Tech. He was the Fiesta Bowl defensive MVP. Across 52 games, he's played 2,300 defensive snaps. For strengths, I've got coverage instincts. He pops. His blitz timing, he knows how to scheme up and vary his speed. He knows when to hit the gaps. He's got fluid lower body mechanics, great hand usage versus blockers, drives through the ball carrier when tackling, and he was a green dot wearer, which is something that we mentioned as something we needed.
It is.
Weaknesses, I'll say he's lacking some ideal play strength at times. Uh, he Sorry, I can't read some of my own notes here. My handwriting is terrible. And sometimes he gets a little bit too aggressive. He's got really good play speed, but he will over pursue at times. But
Gotcha.
I love Musa. I think he would be a really good fit in the scheme because he's got a little bit of both. He's got the coverage ability. He's real explosive in the run game as well.
Awesome. I did not know much about Bossa. I don't know too much about a lot of Oregon players. I did not really watch Oregon that much this year. So thank you for that. Drew came with his homework done. He had Jeffrey Bossa locked down. Dude pulled out scouting notes out of the blue for Jeffrey Bossa. So very impressive. Uh,
I'd make another Oregon player for you as we go along in this too.
I'm sure we'll see a few Oregon guys in here. I'm sure one of them will be pretty high, if I had to guess. It might have the initials of D and H. We shall see. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one from Chris Young. Let's see what we've got. So I'm not sure exactly what the terms for the trade were, but we moved down 10 spots from 16 to 26. And it looks like we keep our second round pick. Maybe we change our third, and then the rest seem fairly normal. But we get Walter Nolan at 26. So maybe a few weeks ago, Walter Nolan wouldn't have been a candidate at 26. He was going higher pretty consistently. But like James Pierce and other guys, it is that part of the offseason where news about the character concerns of so and so is bringing them down in the draft boards, and Walter Nolan is one of those guys. Nothing like the Mike Green allegations that are actually like bad allegations. I don't know if there's any truth to them. I can't speak to that. But Nolan is also basically just he's kind of lazy and doesn't play with a lot of heart type of guy. That is the rumor going out about him. So him going down at 26 wouldn't necessarily be the craziest surprise. And talent's not the problem with Walter Nolan. He's incredibly talented. I'd be happy with his talent as a player, but shouldn't put too much stock in rumors, of course. But Robert Kimdichie broke my heart into several billion pieces. And if there's any truth to the stuff out there about Walter Nolan just not being a football guy, I don't want another Robert Kimdichie. I can't handle that.
Yeah, I I don't know. I did see a report. Jake did share something with me. There was another report, and I cannot remember the reporter's name, so I won't even pretend to try and source it, but I will try and find that later. But there is a report that was saying everyone that this reporter's talked to, that have talked to Nolan, they're like, he seems fine. So again, how much stock do you really put into those type of things at this time of year?
Right.
We don't. But I'm with you. If now, I will say didn't fall out of a dorm room window, so that's a plus. But it it brings up those memories, and I don't want to.
That is so funny. You said that right as soon as Mono did. Did Nolan fall out of a window too? Not as far as we know. No reports about that so far. So, what else we have here from Chris Young's? Um, to be honest, I don't know really anything about Ty Felton, the wide receiver out of Maryland, so I can't really speak to him too much. But if you, Mr. Nike Oregon guy, know anything about Jordan Birch and Jamari Caldwell, now is your chance because we got two more Oregon Ducks in this mock.
Jordan Birch, I'm getting to. I've not gotten to, but yes, let me. Jamari Caldwell. I think I mentioned last week in the chat down there is another one of my favorites. He would definitely. He would be more of a rotational guy, I think, to start. He's more of a nose tackle, so I think he would be the sub for Dalvin Tomlinson, but he could learn from him and eventually take over. Jamari Caldwell, we've got 6'2", 332 pounds. He ran a 5.16 40 with a 1.86 split and a 27-inch vert. Here's what I like about him. He was a 0-star O-line recruit coming out of high school. He ended up landing at Houston, I believe it's sophomore year, and ended up making second team All Big 12 honors with 27 tackles, 8.5 tackles for a loss, and 6.5 sacks.
Jeez.
And yeah, just from a 0-star offensive line recruit to putting up those numbers at Houston, Big
You
12.
gotta love that type of grit. I love 0 stars, 1 stars, 2 stars that make it to top tier programs because you already have all of the character and work ethic stuff checked off. You don't even need to ask about that sort of stuff. If you see a guy coming from high school obscurity to one of the top programs in the country, you know they worked their ass off to get there.
And he was a 4-star recruit by the time he got to the transfer portal and when he
Oh yeah.
landed Oregon. Now, production dropped a little bit his last year, partly just kind of the role that they had him in. They used him all over the field over at Houston. He was playing 5 tech at Houston, and he was playing 0 tech at Oregon. He can play all the positions. First step, insane. Lateral agility, insane. The guy's tape is super fun. I really, really enjoy him. The type of athleticism that he has at his size for a nose tackle is rare. So I think if you could land a Jamar Caldwell 4th, 5th round, like I said, you could get somebody who could turn into a solid level starter late in this draft. I would love him.
Caldwell really impressed me at the combine. I paid attention to the defensive line and linebacker drills this year at the combine. And for a guy I didn't know a ton about, again, not an Oregon guy myself, he just looked good. He looked smooth. He looked fluid. And for someone who's being consistently mocked that low or kind of in that general region, he is a guy that I think of whenever I think about, oh, this is a historic defensive line class. Well, if Jamari Caldwell is in any indication, then yeah, then he is. Because in many other years, he's a second rounder, I think. And him going that low just means there's a lot of talent out there this year.
100% agree.
And like Jake says, picking up another true nose tackle to have to take over when Tomlinson leaves. He's a 31-year-old player. We only have him on a 2-year deal. Makes all the sense in the world to me. I would love that move.
And there's no reason you can't double up. There's no reason you can't get one earlier and then snag one later that's more of a developmental guy. Heck, pair
Absolutely.
Harmon and Caldwell backup. I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just work Caldwell into the rotation sometime. Tomlinson at 31, he can't be out there for every snap, and he's about 60% of the snaps kind of guy anyway. So yeah, I would be totally for it. Let's go ahead and move to the next one from O Cards. So I again don't see the trade details in here, but we do move down from 16 to 28. We get a guy that we talked about earlier in this stream, Donovan Ezariaku from Boston College. And he has everything. He has the crazy production numbers. I think he had 15 sacks in his senior season at Boston College. And if you just watch him he can get almost perpendicular to the floor on his bend when he's coming around an edge. It's wild. Like, dude is an athlete, and he matches that with super, super high production in college. He's a pretty complete prospect to me. He started this mock draft off-season period a few months ago in pretty solidly second, third round. He is very consistently in the first round now. I think he nailed a lot of his combine interviews, so he's a guy that teams like, and he really has everything you want. Now, my only point on that would be, after the Josh Sweat signing, are you going to take one of the few elite edges out there, or are you going to take more of a developmental edge and focus on getting one of the elite defensive linemen?
I mean, that's definitely a question. I think, again, with what we've done, we've put ourselves in a position where we don't have to necessarily go any direction. We can go whichever direction we decide is the best. If depends on, it really does depend on what they're going to value more. I do see another defensive line road piece probably being a slightly bigger need. But if they look and with where they're at, if they say, you know what, we can still find one of those guys later and we can't at the edge, and one of those guys is the edges is available, I could see them going that way. I really think we're in a position to kind of sit back, let the board fall to us, and not panic and just make the best move that we think is there.
Sure. And if moving down this far and you still get a guy as talented as Arayaku, and you pick up some other picks, and oh my gosh, I just now saw this. This is beyond the pale. I don't think could possibly happen unless he runs over a child in the next few weeks. Kenneth Grant going all the way to 47.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was we lived in that world at one point a few, maybe a few months ago before some of the testing and stuff, and some people started really watching the tape. I don't think we live in that world anymore. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because I would love it, but I don't think that is just not gonna happen.
I mean, if anyone's got a picture of Kenneth Grant ripping a bong that they want to post on the internet real quick so we can get him at 47, please, please post it. But I could not in a million years see him lasting till 47. Not when he is probably the most consistent right now pick at 16 for Arizona. It's probably a tie between Kenneth Grant and Derek Harmon as the most picked person at 16.
I personally like Grant a little bit more than Graham, and I know that's saying something, but I'm also not the only one who said that either. Grant opened up a lot of things for Graham, and depending on where Graham goes, if he doesn't have that kind of running mate with him, he may not look as good to start off.
Sure. Yeah, it goes both ways. Mason Graham is the guy who's come out on top, as the top tier talent, and Kenneth Grant's kind of got second billing. But you need both of them. It's just like what we were saying earlier about Chan and Marcus Golden. They were a pair that worked beautifully together. They did different things and they did them differently, but both of them helped each other be as successful as they were in those few years. We've got Deion Walker as defensive tackle out of Kentucky, also, so doubling up there on defensive tackles, which somewhere in the draft, doubling up on defensive linemen, I'm not against necessarily. Deion Walker, I don't know a ton about. I
Give you some thoughts on Deion Walker, but you know what? For the
please.
sake of staying in positivity, maybe I shouldn't. And I do need to go grab my charger for right now. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
All
Sorry.
right. We'll see you when you get back.
Too
So
bad.
Chris Paul Jr. at 78. Love that pick there. Chris Paul Jr., like I've said earlier, he's a little bit short for a Mike linebacker, but he's a really talented, super, super athletic linebacker that I like quite a bit. I'm just not sure about drafting him as the Mike of the future, the green dot of the future. That is a little bit harder to get behind for sure. Johnny Cornelius, the tackle out of Oregon, I do like that pick. Jackson Slater, the guard from Sacramento State, I don't know that much about. To be honest, Jack Kaiser, another linebacker from Notre Dame. I don't think doubling up on linebackers is in the card. Not like that. Jack Kaiser's in the tween area where he's probably not talented enough to be your starter day one, but he's also not just pick a linebacker to be a special teamer and send him to special team hell for the rest of his career. Like Jack Kaiser can play. Um, so I don't know. I just don't see the use of Chris Paul and Jack Kaiser on the same team. But that last pick there, Johnny Walker Jr., the edge out of Missouri, underrated guy. I don't know why he is so consistently in the 200s. He was productive at Missouri. He was a teammate of Darius Robinson a couple years ago. He's good. He's not one of the elite guys in this class, but Johnny Walker's getting a little bit slept on, I would have to say.
I mean, that's usually what happens when you're on Johnny Walker, so I guess it makes sense.
True. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Mr. Mono 187. I know you're in the chat here, so we are talking about you now. And I've been waiting for this to see Derek Harmon. We're sticking and picking. This is a whole stick and pick draft, it looks like. We've got Derek Harmon out of Oregon at 16. Not mad at it at all. There are arguments for Harmon over Kenneth Grant that I am definitely willing to entertain. I like Kenneth Grant a lot, and if you put a gun to my head right now, I probably would go Kenneth Grant. But Derek Harmon fits the team, he fits the scheme, he fits the culture. There's not really that much to not like about Derek Harmon.
What I like about Derek Harmon, even over Kenneth Grant, I'm actually in the other boat. Even though I just hyped up Kenneth Grant quite a bit, his is more kind of upside. He's really raw. Harmon's very polished. He could come in right away, be plug and play starter. I think Grant's going to take a little bit more time to develop. But what I really liked about Harmon, he's really more of a 3-4 tech, which means he can kind of play in that rotation right away with Tomlinson and B Rob, just start providing something right away. Whereas Grant, Caldwell, who I mentioned, are more nose tackle developmental guys. Harmon's a day one. You get him, he starts.
Yeah, the minute you get Derek Harmon at 16, or maybe some trade back in the first round, then you have a 3-4 defensive front day one. Darius Robinson, Dalvin Tomlinson, Derek Harmon. That's your starting lineup, and you know that from the get-go. Kenneth Grant is a bit more of a question mark on what exactly you do with him and whether or not he has an extensive enough tool set to be like an impact guy. He's going to be your starter if you're picking him that early, but really figuring out what exactly he's going to do on that defense, that is a valuable and valid question. Derek Harmon is an easier fit. You can make the arguments about talent and all of that, and I think Kenneth Grant and Harmon both interview well and are well liked and well regarded, so I don't think character is anything of a concern for either of those guys. It's just about fit. Kenneth Grant will fit some team perfectly, and he will be successful in the league. Derek Harmon, same thing. A second round wide receiver. Okay, I am Minor. Not a guy I know a ton about. We have two Stanford wide receivers on our roster right now. We've got Michael Wilson and his former teammate Simi Fehoko, who are now on the roster. And Stanford, they put out good football players, underrated good football players for a team that, when I think of college football, I don't think of Stanford that much, but they've put out some of the greats in the last few years. Andrew Luck, Christian McCaffrey. There have been some great Stanford Cardinal that have come out. Josiah Stewart, edge out of Michigan. I like him. He had production. He is not like he's not an Ezrayaku, just crazy bend. He's going to flash you with athleticism and get around the edge so fast you never know what's coming. But he knows what he's doing. He's a solid, almost professional player at this point. Really knows football really well. I do like him. And with Sweat taking off some of that pressure of you got an edge one, you don't have to worry about that part. You're just working out what the rest of the room is going to look like and what the rotation looks like. I like Stewart quite a bit. Jake does bring up he is a bit undersized for edge. He's 6'1". That's kind of a theme through this draft class, surprisingly. There are some really good guys at positions that you want a little bit more height at, like Chris Paul, and here Josiah Stewart, that are just a bit smaller, but sometimes you can get past that. I would
The
say,
thing
please go ahead.
I was gonna say, sorry. So the thing for me with Stewart, like I do really like him, but if I'm drafting a 6'1" guy, give me David Walker, who's 6'1", 269, versus Josiah Stewart, 6'1", 239. Like I want the guy with the size. That's the only thing that scares me about Stewart. But I do really like him. He did flash down in Mobile. I'm just so worried about that frame. We had Miles Sanders or Myjai Sanders once, and that didn't work out.
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely do. We've talked a little bit about Jack Kaiser, Logan Brown, tackle out of Kansas, and Marcus Ware, the guard out of Montana State. So this is what I'll say about Marcus Ware and Montana State in general is I don't think it is in the ideology of Monty Austin-Fort to pick small school or FCS guys. I don't. Unless it's the clearest home run pick that you could ever get, I just don't see it happening. And also keep in mind that a few years ago, the number 3 overall pick was an FCS player, Trey Lance, and dude doesn't have a team right now. I am not saying that FCS cannot produce great football players. They obviously can. Division 3 can produce great football players. We've seen it in the past. But if you put the numbers up, it's incredibly unlikely. And out of the 21 players that Monty has drafted so far, um, only 4 have come from non-Power 4 programs. He goes after the big programs that have all the resources set up to develop talent to the utmost level and make professional football players because they do a lot of the work for you, and that's great. And that's what he gets. Why we have so many Buckeyes on this team and more like true SEC Big Ten football players on the squad than we ever did in the Steve Keim years, where he was consistently taking small school guys trying to outsmart the rest of the world. So Marcus Ware, probably a good football player. FCS guy is probably not going to be a Cardinal. I know he played well at Shrine Bowl. He did. Um, but again, I just don't see that. I don't see the Zabel guy either for the same reason. Is that a prejudicial thing? Yes, but the numbers back it up from Monty's drafting history. So if we're going to talk about the chart and numbers of what Monty's done in the past, he doesn't do this stuff.
And it's not necessarily you being prejudicial. It's just looking at Monty's prejudice. So it's fine.
Just looking at the number, Monty does love the Shrine Bowl. He loves his Shrine Boys and all of the guys that stand out in the bowl games. However, it just seems unlikely. But taking guards late and tackles late it does line up with the chart. So I will give it that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Thank you, Mono, for your draft. We've got Monster Demo here. Um, big trade down. Big trade down to 31. Jeez. Okay. I'm not totally against that. If it's for the right number of picks, we get the right stuff back. Okay. We get a 2026 Atlanta second round pick, a third round pick for a lot of stuff happened in this draft, apparently. But let's look at the players that we got. Donovan Azareaku at 31. Excellent value. Love that. Josh Connerly, Oregon. We've got so many Oregon Ducks for you to talk about. But do you know anything about Josh Connerly? I know he and something Cornelius are the two Oregon tackles that are going in this draft.
Johnny Cornelius. And I don't know, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about Connerly. I just know um, he's been mocked high kind of towards the back end of that first round, uh, top end of the second round. So I could see him falling there to us. And if he was available, I would absolutely take him just based off what I know, but it is limited at this point. I'm still getting to tackles outside of some of the top guys.
Darius Alexander's defensive lineman from Toledo that I see all over the
And like,
place. I'll see
I
him as high as the late 20s and 30s sometimes.
This is the one I wanted to jump in there about the
Please
small
do.
school. This is where, yeah, this is where Bonnie could break the small school. trend when it comes to Toledo and it comes to Darius Alexander. That dude can play, and I like if you have not, Tyler, if you have not checked out what he did down in Mobile, go check that out. He turned everybody's heads down there. The dude is an athletic freak. Again, another guy that they had playing five technique as a defensive tackle, and he play all the way across the line and have impact everywhere. And he made all those big school boys look silly. So I don't care about what the school is. The dude's got it.
Okay, for sure. I saw the bowl game and he looked amazing. So I believe that. So 63 seems selling him pretty low. I'm seeing him in the late 20s, early 30s quite a bit lately. So not upset about that at all. We've got another double up with the very next pick at 78, Omar Norman Lott. I think he could be there at 78. He was just at Tennessee, but he actually was at Arizona State for a bit. So that is where I'm more familiar with him before he entered the transfer portal and went to Tennessee. But he, as a rotational guy on the defensive line, I would love to have him. He's a pretty big dude. He's a run stopper, not really a pass rusher. But he could maybe be kind of like a backup nose tackle behind Dalvin Tomlinson as he develops. I don't mind him at all. He was a Sun Devil, though, and that I will not forget. And 115, probably the most polarizing of all picks for Cardinals fans this offseason is Cam Skattebo. Now, I will say at the top, Cam Skattebo is one of my favorite Sun Devils of all time. He's my second favorite Sun Devil of all time after Pat Tillman. However, I do not think the Arizona Cardinals will be drafting a running back this year with James Conner and Trey Benson and Amari DiMarcado on the roster. And Michael Carter is still hanging around. You can throw him on practice squad or the active list on any given week. So it's just not a need. I love Scat. He's awesome. And my greatest fear in life is that he's going to go to the San Francisco 49ers and haunt us for a decade, which will probably happen because that's just how things work for us. But my heart wants it. My brain says it's not going to happen.
I mean, I think we're in a better position to take a swing, especially if we get some extra capital. We're in a much better position to be able to take best player available, take maybe a luxury pick than we were, a month ago. I still don't think it's super likely. But on the other hand, I mean, one of two things is true. Either we met with Scattaboo just to generate some interest to make teams think that we're going some way and wasted a visit for that, or there's genuine interest. It's one of the two. So
A
doesn't
top
mean we're going
30
to.
visit is weird. That really struck me as odd. If you can trade back in the first round and pick up significant draft capital to where you kind of have a pick to burn in the third or fourth round, yeah, bring Cam Skattebo to Arizona. We'll find a place for him. But if you sit and pick with 6 picks, no, I just don't think that is going to happen. Now, this draft is crazy for running backs. Unreal. The defensive line thing is real hyped, and I do believe it. We've talked about that. Running back, though, is an insane running back class. Yeah, into the 5th or 6th guys that could start on some teams, absolutely. Which also goes to my point that you should never draft a running back that early. You can get value in the 5th, 6th, 7th round for running backs. You don't need to do it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And okay, so he's an appeasement pick to the ASU guys. Well, thank you, because I am a proud Sun Devil and I love Cam Skattebo so much, but I just don't think it will happen. All right, let's go on to the next one. Erva. We had one from you last week. Oh, you wrote out on your picture what you did. Awesome. Thank you. So you traded our second round pick, 47, to Baltimore for 59 136. Awesome. Okay. Love that. And a second round trade back makes a lot of sense to me too. If you want to take the best player you can possibly get at 16 and then use 47 to move around and get some extra picks. Love that. Feels like a very Monty thing to do. So James Pierce Jr. at 16. Okay. Talent's not an issue with JPJ. Very talented guy. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't be upset about it either, because you would get to throw him into an edge room of Josh Sweat and BJ Ojolari, Zayvon Collins, James Pierce Jr. He would have time to develop into the guy I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be a good pro. Something just feels off about him. I don't know. Something just doesn't feel right about how much he's fluctuated through the big boards. I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with him.
As soon as I saw Jeremiah having him fall, I kind of got the same sense. It's DJ, if he's putting stuff out there like that, like I mean, not saying he doesn't get stuff wrong, especially at this stage, because he definitely does. I mean, he had us taking Tyree Wilson at one point ahead of Will Anderson. So, but I still love Daniel Jeremiah, and I think what he put out there, I think he feels very strongly that the league is just a little hesitant when it comes to James Pierce.
Yeah. And Nick, yes, I would care about Scat if he didn't go to ASU. Any running back in the modern football landscape that has 100+ broken tackles in a college football season, yeah, I'm going to notice him and I'm going to like him. He plays an old school type of football that you don't get to see that much, and he's not even that big. You would expect it out of guys that are freaks like Derrick Henry. That's not Cam Skattebo. He is not like physically that impressive, but man, he plays football harder than almost anyone I've ever seen. Dion Walker, Dana had something in here for us since I don't know a ton about him. He's playing on a lower back pars fracture. Ouch. I am well acquainted with back problems, so I don't even know how he did that. So back problems for a defensive lineman, scary. Pushing him down to the second round, that totally makes sense to me. Back injuries are just tough for linemen as a whole. You got your hand in the ground like that with a back problem. I don't know how they do it. So I get it. That would make me pretty wary of him too.
Here's what you need to know about Dion Walker. He is massive. He's like 6'7", 6'8". Dude's tall. Dude's really, really tall and he's got a massive frame for his size. Carries a ton of weight. He at times can be super athletic with that frame as well. He's a former basketball player, so there's some videos of him like crossing you up with a basketball, and he looks really fluid with it. But he plays super, super high. I didn't even realize he had the back injury until recently. So when I heard that, it kind of makes some sense. But his technique is atrocious. I don't love him at all. He's one of my least favorite prospects in this class, and he looked terrible in Mobile. Willie Lampkin, who's like almost a full foot shorter than him, just completely shut him down.
Well, hey, let's skip to pick 225. We've got Willie Lampkin on this one. Guard / center out of North Carolina. He is tiny. Let's get that out of the way. He's like 5'11", right? He is not a large man for that position, but we've seen success, especially at center. Jason Kelce coming out was considered a puny little guy, and he turned into possibly the greatest center of our generation. So it's not a be-all, end-all. He has great technique. He also, and I've heard Jason Kelce talk about this on all of his media stuff, that he had an advantage sometimes because he had really long arms, abnormally long arms for his size, and being smaller than guys, he got to have leverage on bigger defensive guys that were going after him, and that actually gives him an edge. So I like Willie Lampkin quite a bit. If you just look at the numbers and you see the 5'10", 5'11", whatever it is for him, and you go, man, that's kind of wild when you're considering the size of humans on the offensive and defensive line. There can be little advantages to that if you know how to work it. And Willie Lampkin was really effective at North Carolina. I like him a lot.
It gives us a built-in defense for all the dummies who keep saying that Kyler can't see over his offensive line. Yes, he can.
Yes, he can. Kyler Murray has been that size since high school. He's won at high school and college level, yes, he can see, guys. It's such a ridiculously overstated line that I hear all the time, and I do get sick of that.
Well, every quarterback who's ever played the position has it's come out and talked about this. It's like, dude, no quarterback really sees over the line. You see through windows in the line, everything. So yeah, I agree with that as well. But if we had a guard that was the same size as our quarterback, then we could really just be like, you can't say that anymore.
Right. Now, my only pushback on that is crazy big guys. There's a tackle in this draft, and there was one a few years ago that we talked about on the last stream that are like 6'8". That's almost a full foot. You are reaching an area that's a bit much. However, the not being able to see over him, of course he can, but he's a professional football player. He knows how to see through his linemen, guys.
And last year, by the way, I am here to confirm it was Amarius Mims. The other guy that you mentioned came out the year prior. Amarius
Okay.
Mims was 6'8", 370-pound dude that they accidentally messed up. They
What a
messed up his
monster.
Oh, he was insane. They messed up his 40 time and they got him mixed up with someone else and they said he ran like a 4.7 or something like that. And all Twitter was freaking out. They're like, how did a guy that size run a 4.7? What? Yeah, it was just an error.
So Dana is saying Lampkin as a center for long-term success. I agree. I think he's much more of a center than he is a true guard. But I think he could have success at center. I really do. If he follows that Jason Kelsey mold, there is a role for shorter than wanted centers out there. So, and he's got long arms. Lampkin's an underrated guy. I would not mind seeing him. And he is going to be in some of the later rounds simply because of his size, but he might go to a team and be really impressive. I like it.
And he's a dog and he's a money guy.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I'll get one more from Simon. What? Oh, gosh. Sorry. I just hit some weird thing. I don't know where I am anymore.
We've got it up here on the screen though, so we're good there.
Okay. I'm back. I got lost in my own browsers. So, Simon. Oh no, Simon, what have you done? You've gone right into Drew's line. You took Shamar Stewart at 16. You didn't even trade back for him. Okay, Drew, I'm gonna let you handle this one. Go for it.
Uh, Kyler, you may be surprised. He may not be there at 16. Like for the league loves him. They really do. He may go. He may be second or third edge off the board. It it's crazy. Again, it's crazy. I am such a product. I can't even believe I'm saying this. So Simon, I'm with you. I'm tracking with you on
Simon
this
P.
one.
Simon. This is a Simon thing to do.
I see it. I love it. I feel the solidarity with you. In fact, I even mentioned to Kyler my draft specifically. One of the purposes of my submission was to stand in solidarity with you. So the fact that you went with another one of the guys that I like that Kyler hates is just it's perfect. It's great. I love it.
His size and athleticism are not in question. They're freaky level. They're really cool. But there's no production, like none to speak of. And you're talking about a guy from a major program. And there were
And
a lot of guys, and they used their defensive line very weirdly at A&M. So part of it is scheme, part of it's the system he was in. If he was on Michigan, maybe we would see a totally different level of production. Yeah, okay, I'm willing to give that up, but it is just so hard for me to look past production of that little. If it was medium production and then all the crazy athleticism, I'd be with you, but like almost no production to talk about. He did have like 33 hurries, which is awesome. So he can pressure the quarterback. He just can't close the deal.
no, I totally get it. And especially when you've got somebody like Zayvon Collins on the team right now who kind of fits that same mold. Great edge. His career, Zayvon Collins' career run stopping grade from the edge is better than Micah Parsons. And I think that goes overlooked by some of the fan base. Like his career grades are like in the 80s, and Micah's about in the, he averages in the 60, 65 range. Zaven's best, or sorry, Zaven's worst graded run stopping year was Micah's best. So if that
Yeah.
puts something in perspective, but he just provides nothing as a pass rusher. And if that's what Stewart's going to be, I wouldn't want that either. And I don't even love necessarily going edge in round one unless it's just you just absolutely love that guy. So I don't think Stewart's going to be that guy, but I do really like him more than I've ever liked any guy with that level, that low level of production. So I do see what people like.
So, do you agree with Simon here that you take Stewart to play a 3-4 defensive end? So he's opposite D Rob, play rundowns, edge if you have to in a rotation. Do you think he's actually a defensive lineman or is he a true edge?
I mean, he could. I think Nick Scorton is probably a little bit more of that. I mean, they're similar, but I just see Scorton as being more of the guy that can play hands down a little bit more than what I would want Stewart to do. But I think he could do it. I again, I would like Scorton more in that role. If that's what you're looking for. So that's a tough one, but he could. He could. I don't think it's out of the
Yeah.
question.
I think of the A&M Aggies that you're looking at, if you want a guy that can also put his hand in the dirt, Nick Scourton. I agree with that. Let's go to his second pick there, and I'm going to pick up the pace on these. I said an hour. We're already at an hour and 20 minutes. We're going to move. Donovan Jackson in round 2. I think it's the first time we've seen him tonight, which is surprising. It's kind of hard to get him in these mocks because he's not someone you're going to take at 16. Even in a trade back into the 20s, you're probably not going to take him, but he's often not there at 47 either. And yes, he gets listed as a tackle here, and he did take over at tackle at the end of the season for Ohio State because Josh Simmons was injured, but he's really a guard. Like that was the majority of his college career was playing at guard. And if you can get him at 47, he to me is a plug and play right guard. So amazing value to me there if you can get him in the second round. He's just like he's in between. To get him at 47 would be great, but you're not going to be able to justify taking him in the first round. You know what I mean? But I like him a lot, and I think he could be a plug and play right guard.
And here's my one argument that to see, for it breaking the chart. Here's the thing that I wanted to say. If you take Donovan Jackson, here's what you're doing is you're taking him to be, like you said, the plug and play right guard this year, or at least to compete with Adams for that position, and
Yeah.
whoever takes that wins. And then Jonah's only got one more year left on his deal. So then next year, then he kicks out to tackle. So you're taking a tackle in the second round. Technically, you're just playing him at guard for 1 year until it's time.
Which is possible, yeah. And then maybe in the third year, Isaiah Adams goes right back into right guard, and you've got Donovan Jackson at right tackle. Then you've got two Buckeyes on as bookends for the offensive line, which wouldn't be mad at. We do have Ohio State's offensive line coach as our offensive line coach now, Justin Fry, and they produce great offensive linemen. So I definitely wouldn't be mad about that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here from Carvich. Okay, a bit more traditional of a one. We got Kenneth Grant at 16, which is a very solid pick for sure. Donovan being there at 47 right now would surprise me. If he is, run to the podium. Like, run to the podium if he is somehow there at 47. Jonah Savanea from Arizona is listed as a tackle most places, but he does great as a guard for most people. And I won't be mad about that. Chris Paul Jr., I've said a lot tonight. I like a lot. He's just a bit undersized. And Upton Stout's a guy I've taken a few times too in later rounds. Taking a developmental safety, if you get a few extra picks over the 6 that we have this year, I'm fine with that because I don't think Jalen Thompson is on this team forever. I think we're probably looking at the last year Jalen Thompson is on this team, if I had to guess.
And actually, Upton Stout was like the last player that I actually had notes on, and I won't go through a ton of them because I know we're trying to get through this quick. The one actually thing that I'll bring up because I do like him. He's very small, and that is his problem. He's very, very undersized, and he's had a lot of injury concerns. So that's the one thing that you just kind of worry: does he have the frame to hold up in the NFL? But I really do like his upside and what he could bring to the table. He would be more of a coverage type safety that you're looking for, and so you probably have that in Rabbit, but he wouldn't be a bad pick if he's there, especially that.
Yeah, Rabbit needs to see the field more this year. You need to see what you can get from him. Dude's a ball hawk too. He's always around the ball. I'd like to see more of him this year. You jumped in at the exact right time, Carvich. Here we are. We're talking about yours. We are just about to stop talking about yours, but Kenneth Grant, great pick. Donovan Azareaku, if through some miracle and God shines down upon us, he's there at 47. Unbelievable. I would almost just take him at 16 too. So these top two picks are kind of interchangeable to me. I love it. And Robert Moore's giving you a B plus. I like this draft too. If it's a stick and pick draft, this is a pretty good one. I like it. All right, let's move on to the next one from Red Sea. We'll go through this one really quickly. Lots of trades. Oh my gosh. You guys can take a look at those. So let's just look at some of the players. Will Johnson, Omar Norman Lott, Chris Paul. Marcus Bow is someone we haven't talked about today. Also, someone I think that grades kind of as a tackle that's going to go inside in the league. Quandarius Robinson as a later round edge out of Alabama as a developmental guy to just put in that room. I like that. Kyle Williams as a speedy wide receiver to add to that room that has a little bit of slot experience. I like that too. I like how many picks you added to this draft for sure. That's so many trades though. Jeez.
A lot of trades, but you're maximizing value for sure, and you're definitely adding to the team. I don't know if we're necessarily in a position where we need to add this much at this point. I think we've done a lot of that heavy lifting throughout the last couple of years. But I mean, again, like you said, Kyler, statistically you're not going to hit on all of them, so maximize your chances. The name that I really like on there is the Jonah. If I'm probably going to butcher it, but Jonah Mannheim, the center out of USC. He looks, from what I've seen of him, I haven't done a ton of work on him, but I've been watching a little bit of him, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. And I know he's been getting really hyped up. It was either the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl. He did pretty well. I can't. That one's eluding my brain right now, but I know he did well in one of those All-Star games.
Yeah, this is a fun draft. I like it. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Justice 21. Also a trade. Minnesota gets 16. We get 24.97. Okay. 24 Derek Harmon. Excellent value. 100%, 100% on board. 47 Princely Umun Milan.
Munuelen, I think, is something like Munuelen.
Mixed feelings on Mr. Princely. He is a boomer bust type of prospect to me. But he had a good production at Mississippi and a really good defense. Like they're gonna have like 5 players out of their defense drafted in the first 3 rounds. So they really did produce. Something just strikes me a little bit as off about him. Robert, yep, we are talking about yours right now. The last thing that I'll point out on this one that Demetrius Knight, really talented football player, 25-year-old rookie. That gives me pause. I don't think that's where the team needs to go right now. This is such a youth movement team at the moment that it's hard to sell me on a 25-year-old rookie. Am I wrong?
You're not necessarily wrong, and I think at most positions I would 100% agree. And 99 times out of 100, I would agree. The one argument I could make for Demetrius Knight, and kind of making sense, is the fact that a lot of young inside linebackers, it takes them a few years to develop. It takes them a few years to kind of figure out some of the nuance of that before they are really high end productive starters. Uh, sorry, again, brain is getting fresh. Demetrius, he's kind of already got that. Like he's more advanced, he's more seasoned. He could maybe come in and contribute a little bit more early on than some of the other guys with that age. That's about the one argument as a positive that I could make for it.
Sure. I get that too. It's a position that's hard to come in and be the guy immediately. 25-year-old rookie is a James Jones pick. Wrong Arizona sports team. Yeah. What are you going to do about him, though? There's nothing we can do. Yeah, tough position to play. Tough to come in as a rookie. It is. All right.
That would be a James Jones pick. He'd be really good, and then we trade him for nothing.
From Brian here, we've got a shockingly similar one. We start with a lot of the same players. Kenneth Grant, Princely, we got Demetrius Knight in there. Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia, I've seen a lot and I like a lot. If he's available around that 78 pick, guard in the third round, love it. If you have addressed defense in those first 2 rounds and you can get a guy of Tate Ratledge's caliber at 78, love. I'm there for it.
Yeah, I mean, give me a big old country boy with a mullet at guard any day.
Yeah, this is a high B, maybe an A- draft for me. I like this one quite a bit. Holland Pierce kind of has a depth, see what you can get out of him guy. The tackle out of Rutgers, a little bit underrated there at 152. I like it.
Yeah, even Denzel Burke was projected as a first, second round pick at one point in his life.
Yeah. Got this one from Twitter, I believe, from Get Gannon 2. Derek Harmon, we've had a trade here down at 25. Derek Harmon at 25, amazing. Landon Jackson at 47 is the first time we've seen that tonight. I like Landon Jackson. He's in that tier 2 group of edge rushers that you're not taking as your number one guy, which great. We got Josh Sweat in free agency. Awesome. We don't have to rely on him to be that guy. So Landon Jackson as a guy with a little bit of that pressure off of him. He had production in college. I like Landon Jackson. And he had a great combine. He was really great to watch. He's super fluid.
A lot of people didn't take him seriously until that combine, and then they went, "Oh, he's not a meme. He's a legit player." So that was cool.
People acted like they had just discovered who Landon Jackson was after the combine. Like, he was a good player at a decent, good program in the SEC, but he really made a name for himself at that combine. He made himself a lot of money at that combine. Good for him.
He's just got kind of an odd frame and an odd look, so people just, the
He
way
does.
people are nowadays.
He does. But I like him, man. Jalen Knoll, like it as that immediate slot upgrade. Dude is a monster there. Chris Paul, I like. Jack Nelson, tackle from Wisconsin. I don't know a lot about, but my gut says offensive lineman from Wisconsin. Okay, I'm willing to listen. Like Wisconsin and Nebraska, if you're going to present me an offensive lineman from either of those places, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. And Joshua Farmer had a pretty good combine as well. The defensive line class is good this year, guys. It's not that overhyped. They really are. I like Joshua Farmer, and at 115, that's pretty good value. Yeah, Dana, Landon Jackson tests a lot more agile and faster than expected. Yeah, he changed a lot of minds with his combine performance for sure. All right. Next one. Oh, I forgot to put mine in.
No, I think yours and mine are at the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah. You're right. That was just a filler slide that I had in there. All right, we'll do mine and then we'll end with yours, Drew, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So I did get freaky with this one. We have a trade back from 16 to 23 with the Packers. We picked up a few picks, third round and a seventh round pick, and we just go straight for offensive line. We get Tyler Booker at 23. Tyler Booker started this offseason in the second, third round kind of guy. But he's a first rounder. Don't get it twisted. Tyler Booker is going in the first round. And I do like the idea. Again, this is not exactly what I think is going to happen. Joe, I'm so sorry. I told you that I was throwing the chart out for this one. Yes, I know. Joe is super duper hurt. The chart has been broken by this one. But just imagine, guys. Just imagine this.
And I thought mine was going to be the most hated one today.
Evan Brown is being brought back because at left guard last year, we didn't have to call his name that much. He just showed up and he did his job, and he's nothing crazy, he's nothing special, but like he's solid enough to get that job done. But wouldn't it be nice to just have an elite young guard that you can have on your team for many years? Evan Brown leaves, left guard. Just have a guard flexibility of a guy the caliber of Tyler Booker.
I
Now
don't
that
hate it.
this
You
is
are
a
right.
solid point about scheme. However, Dana, we are not talking about reason or rationality right now. Remember, we have thrown the chart away. Tyler Booker is well liked by many, many, many teams. Tyler Booker has flown up the big boards lately. And yes, Robert Moore, you are correct. I do want a younger and cheaper version of Trey Smith, who is, in fact, PFF's comp for Tyler Booker. If you tell me there's a comp for a player of Trey Smith, I'm going to pay attention to that. The guy that every Cardinals fan was like, oh, we got to roll out the Brinks truck for Trey Smith this offseason. And they got pissed when we didn't do it, or we didn't sign Will Fries. Like, okay, we've got this guy, we've got Tyler Booker. Anyway, we'll move on. Alfred Collins, we've heard a bit about. Chris Paul, I took. Jalen Royals, if he's still there in the third round. Buddy goes Burr. Like he's a fast boy, and he is something that I think that wide receiver room could definitely use. You could throw him in the slot if you need to too, but he can also really take the top off of defense. Jamari Caldwell took one of your Oregon Ducks because I love him in the fourth round at that value. Upton Stout, we've seen before. Johnny Walker, we've seen before. And then Xavier Truss as a seventh round flyer. You're taking him because he has a pedigree from a big program, and maybe you develop him into something, but he's probably just a depth piece. Let's be real. Kyler has abandoned reason. um, this is what happens on the first mock draft Monday without Joe. I take Tyler Booker in the first round.
And apparently LeBron James next week. So
Yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. Will this happen? No. But I think it does. These are all positions that I think are in play, at least. Guard, defensive lineman, linebacker, wide receiver, edge, all of those are in play for this draft, and I think will be taken somewhere. So we're really just taking 5 positions and playing around with them at different spots. That's kind of just what we're doing with all of these mocks. So, Drew, are you ready for yours?
I am ready, sir.
Let's do it. Let's see who's more mad. Tyler Booker in the first round or what you have done.
Simon, I hope you're still out there, buddy. I need you right now.
All right, Drew, take us through it.
All right. So here, we had this discussion last time when it came up with Simon. So I figured that I would go ahead and bring a different perspective to this table on wide receiver. And I think it's a big need. I really do. I know the Cardinals have been looking for a wide receiver, and I don't think the re-signings of Greg Dortch for the signing of Simi Fehoko changes that one bit. Like I said earlier, I think we're in a position where we're just going to take whoever is the best player on our board is at whatever position of need makes the most sense. Like I don't think like you said, I don't think running back is necessarily going to be a position that we take in the first, second, third round. But I think wide receiver is absolutely on the board. I know it doesn't seem like Monty is the type of guy that would value wide receiver back to back. I know what you said, Kyler, about a team that wants to run the ball. Are you really going to invest that much draft capital into wide receiver? But I'm going to bring up something that Ron Wolfley has said, and something that I completely agree with, that I've also been raised on, is you've got to be able to win in multiple ways. And we saw last year, Seattle twice and Minnesota. They shut our run games completely down. And when that happened, the passing game couldn't do it. And some of that is on some of the players, some of that's on execution, some of it's on Petzig. We've talked about all of that. But not having that kind of explosive guy out of the slot hurt us a lot. So I could absolutely, I'm crazy, but I'm not a heretic. I'll take it. I could absolutely see it happening in a scenario where we just don't love anyone else at the other positions. And again, I said this about Scott. I'll say it about Golden. We met with them, so it's either we're trying to feign interest to try and get some team to trade up for him, or there's legitimate interest there. So
I get it. I do get that. And in a scenario where maybe Matthew Golden is available really late in the second and you do want to make one of those drastic trade downs and you think he's the best player available, he would absolutely make the team better. I'm not going to argue that. Matthew Golden, his speed, put him in the room with MHJ and Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch, immediately makes the room better. It would be fun, like, but it also is like a Madden pick. Like I want him because I want to play with him and use him. But yes, he'd make the Cardinals better. So I'm not going to argue that. I just think taking back to back first round wide receivers would break the brain of Monty Ossenfort. I don't think he could bring himself to do it.
it may very well, and we've got a big chart that tells us why that is probably the most likely. And I'm not even saying this is not any type of what I would do or what I think is going to happen. This is we're still in March. We're not even quite in April yet. So let's have some fun with this. Let's play around with some names that we haven't looked at or maybe haven't been as hyped up for the Cardinals, and let's just take that route with it. I went more traditional as we went on with it. We've seen Donovan Jackson. We've seen Jordan Phillips. We haven't seen a whole lot. He's a fun one. I know the name probably gives Cardinals fans some PTSD,
It
but
does.
Jordan Phillips is not the other Jordan Phillips, at least from what we've seen on tape, and he definitely brings it every play. Boss, who I've talked about. And then I know Oladejo is somebody that we've also met with. Stout, we touched on. Miles Frazier, as Dana, I noticed in the comments down there, is absolutely not going there at all. He will go much earlier than that. And I'm usually somebody who, if there's a player there and I don't think he's going to go there, I won't take him. But I just did it for this one because I wanted to get his name out there. Thankfully, some other people mentioned him. And then lastly, I think we both went with the same kind of idea. You know what? A Georgia offensive lineman as the last pick is not the worst flyer you can take.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Miles Frazier in round 6, if it happened, wow, that would be a coup. That would be a big steal. I do like Miles Frazier quite a bit, even in the fourth, third round. I like Miles Frazier. Donovan Jackson, we've gone over that. We actually picked a few of the same players: Upton Stout, Xavier Truss, Donovan Jackson. I like this one, other than the unrealism of Matthew Golden, but he would be fun. And to Joe's point that I did throw up here, I have this feeling that with as weak as wide receiver class is, teams that have a bigger need at wide receiver are going to reach for a guy like Golden, and he'll be gone before 22, which is a valid point because this is not the strongest of wide receiver classes at all. So if you are a team that really needs a wide receiver, which the Cardinals could use one, but I wouldn't put it in our top 3 biggest needs. It's Matthew Golden would be the type of pick that I could see next year if the Cardinals have success in 2025. Matthew Golden's like a luxury pick. If you're at 22, you've had a good season, you're in the 20s, you had a good season last year, and you're on the up and up, like you can take a luxury pick like that on Matthew Golden, and I would love that. But man, would I love his speed, his style on the Cardinals. I would definitely be there for that. And we do struggle with depth at wide receiver, which is a point. But Matthew Golden is a starter day one in that room. So you would have to figure out what you're doing in the slot between Michael Wilson, which I can't see as a slot guy, and Greg Dortch and Zay Jones. Those are the guys who would be fighting for their roles. You would have Matthew Golden and Marvin Harrison Jr. on the field for every snap.
I mean, I could see some situations where you're going to put Wilson out there when you want the size, maybe in the red zone
Big
to try and
possession guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
but
how
I do
tall
agree
is
with that.
has Golden?
I want to say he's off the top of my head. I want to say 6 foot. I think he's
Okay.
right 6 foot or 6'1". Yeah, someone else should have that in the chat, but I'm not in the best position to look that up right now. But he's not super tall, but he's not overly short either.
Okay.
And yeah, next time that I'm on, I promise I will have a name that's probably more realistic in the wide receiver realm. That's a little bit later name that I think some people might recognize and might like. But again, this time I just wanted to go with something fun. Wanted to give Simon G a little bit of solidarity there because I know some people were like Matthew Golden last time. I was like, yeah, I'll put him on mine too. Why not?
Yeah. Simon did get it a little bit last time for that. But wide receiver, philosophically, yes. I think adding a wide receiver in this draft makes a lot of sense and something that I would definitely look to happening. Um, so
5'11" on Golden in the chat. Sorry.
I think we went through about 14 mock drafts tonight, maybe 16 if you include both of ours. I went way over the time that I expected, but we still got most of you in here. So apparently I did not run any of you guys off. Very thankful to have all of you guys in here. I'm very thankful to have had Drew on as my guest because Papa could not be here tonight, even though he has been with us in spirit and in the chat. And I'm sure he will chastise me later for my heresy and my my throwing the chart away. I will be better next week. I promise. I'll look at the chart. I will breathe the chart. I will memorize the chart. And you know what? Next week I'll have a chart, a solely chart draft, and we'll see what that looks like. How about that? I will come back into the fold next week. But thankful to have him here in the chat. Thankful to him to have me host the show on his channel, The Cardinal Rule. If any of you guys are not already subscribed to his channel, make sure that you do so. Drew, again, thank you for coming and joining me. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody here how they can find you?
Yeah, definitely check me out right now. Twitter is or yeah, I'm still gonna call it Twitter. I'm like you, Kyler. Sorry. Twitter is kind of my main source of interaction right now. So you can find me at Desert Sports 20 if you want to hang out, and just chat football as my light is going out over here. Uh, love to chop it up with you. Pretty soon I'll be venturing into more of the content creation space, and I'm hoping to be around here a little bit more, whether it's through this segment, other segments, things like that. But I'm branching out of the moderator and into more of the creator space. So hopefully I just see you guys around more. I really do love this community, and I'm really glad that Joe he's doing everything he can to keep it around, because as I think a lot of us feel like there's a lot of different little subspaces you can find in the Cardinals realm, and they're not always the best. And this one has just been my absolute favorite. The reasonableness, the interaction that we all have with each other, it's a great. It's something that I look forward to every week, and when I interact with you guys on Twitter. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this new journey, and I'm excited to see you guys around a lot more.
Absolutely. We're excited to have Drew playing a bit more of a role in the Cardinal Rule family. You guys will see what's going to come up in the future. And I do want to echo that, to thank Joe for building a community that is by far the least toxic football fan community that I've ever been a part of on the internet. So Joe did an amazing job building up the Cardinal Rule, and I'm very thankful to be a part of Mock Draft Monday and be a part of his channel in some small way. For me, you guys can always find me on Twitter as well, azcard_bird's eye. You guys can find me also now, brand new thing just this week. You guys can find me on TikTok, also under Bird's Eye View. And my own YouTube channel has risen from the dead. And I have a video from Saturday, and I also posted one this afternoon. So if you guys still have a little bit of time in your evening and you want to watch a 5-minute video about 3 free agents that I think the Cardinals should still continue to look into signing that are still out there, I hope you will pop over to my channel real quick and give that a view, and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. I'd appreciate that. But for now, I think that is it. Thank you to everyone who came in here for Mock Draft Monday on this Monday. We will see you next week. Maybe with Drew, maybe with a different guest. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have someone else other than me. And again, I promise I will stick to the chart next week. All right. So for that, this is going to be it for this Mock Draft Monday. Thank you again to everyone. Have a beautiful night.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. That's right. Have a great night, everybody.